You're watching Newsfeed PM. Let's bring you some business news now. The South African Reserve Bank has described Tito Mboweni's passing as a great loss to South Africa, the continent, and the global economic community. The central bank says Mboweni played a meaningful role in driving economic transformation and social change throughout his distinguished career. In 1999, Mboweni became the 8th governor and the first black central bank head, holding the role for 10 years. We're now joined by his former colleague at the South African Reserve Bank and the current Nedbank chair, Daniel Mminele. Daniel, the year is 1999. You and the former governor joined the Reserve Bank. Can you please just take us back to those years, just the immense responsibility you faced, the energy of the rooms and the company culture?
Mateo, thanks very much for having me on the program. And I guess as we are all still trying to come to terms with this great loss, allow me to start maybe by conveying my heartfelt condolences to the Mboweni family and best wishes to his friends, his comrades, people that appreciated him and loved former Governor and Finance Minister Mboweni, both here at home and as indeed the Reserve Bank has indicated across our continent and beyond. Yes, of course, Tito Mboweni leaves a giant footprint on the macroeconomic landscape of South Africa. It's quite interesting, you taking us back to 1999. In fact, at that time when Tito Mboweni took over the leadership of the Reserve Bank, it was a time when I guess the general population somehow, in a bizarre way, respected and they feared the Reserve Bank, but with very little understanding of what it actually did and how important it is to their lives and to their long-term futures beyond, obviously, the mortgage and car installment of next month. So he made the bank more transparent in terms of how it takes decisions, increased the level of communication and transparency. I mean, you had a whole governor of the Reserve Bank participating in radio talk shows and announcing interest rate decisions live on TV, unheard of, followed by Q&A. And I guess the introduction of the Monetary Policy Committee is certainly one of the key issues. Many people are not aware of the fact that there's no legal requirement for an MPC, but this exhibited his understanding and commitment to collaboration and understanding that decisions that have had the benefit of input from others tend to be of a higher quality than individual decisions by single people. Of course, he took over a bank that was a latecomer, if I may put it that way, to transformation. So there was a lot in terms of transformation that needed to be undertaken there, but it had to be undertaken very, very skillfully in a very balanced and responsible way. Remember, Mateo, there are certain things that happen at the Reserve Bank that only happen there. We used to refer to it as the industry of one. So unlike, me being able to say, look, today at Nedbank, if I can't find this particular skill, let me go and hunt at the neighbors and the competitors and all of that. There are certain things that you can only learn there and where you've got to be careful in terms of how you restructure, how you take people along. And that's something that he did very, very, very skillfully. He faced a number of other challenges there which had to be dealt with. One of the key issues that he inherited was something called the oversold forward book and the net open foreign currency position, which essentially refers to an untenable situation where the commitment for the country to deliver dollars into the future were hugely in excess of any reserves that we had. And that was a very, very key macroeconomic weakness for the country, condemned the rand to a one-way depreciating kind of bet, put a ceiling on what, the upward migration of our credit ratings with international rating agencies. So there are lots and lots of challenges that he picked up when he got in 1999, which obviously 10 years later, he left with his head held up high.
Let's talk about the humanizing of the central bank. You said earlier it was a feared institution almost, and bringing it home was his decision doing those interest rates announcement live. Did that mean you worked around the clock, always burned the midnight oil, and no one could leave the SARB until the job was done?
Well, that was his hallmark. One of the issues that we had to grapple with at the time were the guy's levels of energies. He just kept going on. He was never tired. He would come from an overseas flight in the morning where you think he's jet lagged, but you in the bank, he will run committees, he'll have meetings, and end up with a dinner, which then went on and on. He'd be the last one to leave, but we learned very quickly not to be fooled by that, because the very next morning, he would be very demanding in terms of deliverables. But he's somebody who pushed the people that worked for him, but who was also hugely invested in their growth.
You must, of course, remember the 2008 crash. A lot of work to do for the Reserve Bank then to make sure that South Africa's fiscal stability and monetary policy was in place during a time where it was quite tough around the world economy. Just how did the team manage that? And do you remember just how tough the war rooms were at the Reserve Bank?
Oh, absolutely. You had to exactly do that. Very, very quickly assembled war rooms, make sure that the cadence of information, management information in terms of what's happening in the markets was increased. And he led all those initiatives. But if I may just go a little bit back before that, the one really scary one was the 2001 currency crisis with the ensuing commission to try and find out what went on there. And he was, of course, the key witness of the bank. And the bank was under huge attack in terms of how it had behaved. And his defense of the bank, its independence, was exemplary. But the 2008 crisis was similarly scary and needed cool heads and strong leadership of the likes of Tito Mboweni.
Would you say one of the best leaders you've worked under?
Certainly, without a doubt, and certainly for me personally, this is obviously a loss of a leader, it's a loss of a mentor, it's a loss of a sponsor, and a loss of somebody who then later became a very trusted friend. He pulled me into the Reserve Bank. He was the one who then clinched the deal for me joining. And certainly my career and the responsibilities and the trust that he showed me allowed me to grow immensely. So certainly very catalytic in terms of my personal career and my life.